Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video.
But it was a lesson, that I had to learn. The ideas that the world has aren't always accurate. Most of the time, they're not. Coming back to church was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Even through the struggles right now, it's still, I know what the pastor looks like out there, right? It's not any greener. Yeah. And I tell you, I'll be honest with you. Like we were talking this morning. We've gone through some trials. My wife and I have. Our family has, especially with all the moves. In Ecuador locked down every year. The natives would rise up and shut the country down, and it was all part of the game, right? To suspend their constitutional rights, and it just got frustrating. Starting a business and you can't run your business. It's like I had business startup and then flop. The rule of law never held up. It was frustrating for us in both Costa Rica and Ecuador. Now there were some beautiful areas, and we have the best friends of our lives. Really close friends in both countries, right?
Yeah.
And we met there, right?
Yeah.
You and I and your wife, we all met there. In fact, we've told this before, your wife and you were the ones that set my wife and I up on that first date, right? Where I was speechless the whole time. Anyway, that's whole other stuff. That's
I remember that.
Hey, let's jump into this one. I'm just going to jump into this part here. So a few months ago, a girl in her grade asked another girl to be her girlfriend. When she said no, she was bullied and called a homophobe. This guy that I know, he knows his daughter well. And they were talking recently, apparently, because he's written some more and explaining it beforehand. And she had only talked about the boys that she likes. She likes boys, right? And she had a daughter that's now apparently lesbian. And here's what he says. But when she was asked to be the other girl's girlfriend, the same one that bullied the other one, apparently, she said yes to avoid being bullied as well as the other girl, right? The fear is that what else might they be willing to do to keep from just being bullied? That's the coercion. That's what you're seeing take place. It's almost a bullying that's taking place on a social level. And I feel it has crept into the church with some bishops, right? And some leaders, just to keep things safe. It's almost creating this for the people. There was another comment I read before, I couldn't find it. Said that, those of us who have been in church a long time and tried to keep these, we want to maintain these normal doctrinal teachings we've had all these years. All of a sudden, we're the ones now being asked to keep quiet and to step aside so that we can accept this new ideology in the church. And it's frustrating to me what the person said. And I wanted to get back to the person and just say, cling to the testimony, cling to the Book of Mormon right now. Don't let go of the iron rod. It's going to work out. We're going to get through this. There's a reason things are taking place right now. And just look at it this way. The longer the temple doors can stay open, the more people can receive that covenant, right? And the day is coming. These wars, rumors of wars, we could be on the brink right now of a civil war in the U.S., right? If not that, we're definitely raising the bar for a World War III right now over defending Israel, right? And so it's like, we just going to have to get through. These are prophesied times. And this is where our testimony now is going to be tried. And I've always said when I worked in the stake, you need to have your own testimony right now. You're going to need your own testimony going forward. You can't live on a borrowed test anymore. You have to really read that book, the Book of Mormon. And you really have to understand that book. Read it slow. The other guy, that comment, I can't find that comment either, that going into what you said earlier, the guy had asked, he said, hey, why is there no modern day scripture today that warned us of these trying times we're going through now? What would you answer that?
The Book of Mormon does a very good job about warning us against immorality. So, why make a differentiation? Immorality is immorality.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Immorality, and there was immorality that existed too. So it's the same thing.
There's a purpose behind sex. There's a purpose behind, having a man and a woman be married. It's not because, what it is that so we can have a family, right? And having families, a mother and a father. It's scientifically proven that these are the best, most ideal situations for children to be raised. It doesn't mean that nowadays we live in an era where we have, different kinds of families, not the nuclear family. I remember taking a class in college that was talking about those different kinds of families. And I'm like, well, it's okay to talk about the different kinds of families, but why do you have to put on the title of this chapter, Undoing the Nuclear Family? That's where I have a problem, because now we have to have a portion of society trying to indoctrinate the rest of the world that this is the way we have to believe from now, But the reality is that mother, father, having children, and those children being raised in a decent home is the most ideal situation. And it's God's way. It's the way we were created. And that's not going to change. So any other form of sexuality, as much as we love our LGBTQ, friends and family members, great. That's not going to stop. But it's still not going to get you to exaltation. It's not going to allow you to have the greatest understanding of the gospel and to live your happiest life here in this life or the next. I can't imagine not being around my children. That would be a big bummer. I'm glad I made the choice to have a family.
And I miss my daughter. I truly
I'm
do.
sure you do. Yeah.
But
I can't imagine being in that situation.
I told her, I said, you can come back, but you can't come back with this attitude. I'm sorry. I cannot allow it in here. I got to protect your brothers and sisters, right? You can come back, you can be here, but we're not going to discuss your lifestyle and anything else, right? That's just not going to be a topic of discussion because it's not something that I want your brothers and sisters to have to deal with. I'm going to teach them how the Lord wants them to be. And I don't, I need in my home, I need to have that protection, right? And that's the problem. I had to fortify my home. Look, these are prophetic times when son will go against father, father against son, daughter against mother, mother against daughter. These are those times right now. And this looks like one of those sensitive hot buttons right now, right? This in the whole, do you support the Jews or do you support, the Houthi? Who are you supporting, right? And so those are hot buttons right now. And there's going to be more hot buttons, Jeff, because Satan likes chaos. All of his leaders on this earth, from Lenin, Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, Mao, they all divided the people first culturally, and even Hitler used the gays, right? So this is no new tactic to Lucifer, and I would bet you, I wasn't there, haven't talked to a Nephite, couldn't interview a Nephite yet that I can find that's still alive. However, I would imagine that, the 2 + 2 in this one most probably that they had the same issues amongst the Nephite people too when they became basically immoral, right?
Yeah.
And when we're talking about the Nephites, though, here's what a lot of us overlook. When we're talking about the Nephites, we're talking about the saints. We're talking about the church. Now, maybe not all were members, not all were active, but that was, where the records were kept, where the church leadership was kept, the church authority was kept, are amongst those Nephites, right? And so you're going to have that corruption always. Look, if the church is true, then Satan's going to do everything he can do to try to put corruption into it. And we just have to understand that. And he's going to do everything he can do to try to mess it up and confuse the people. And this is going to be a time where, I would disagree with the leadership saying we need to have, this is a time for our faith. And I said, no, it's a time for us to actually go out and research. But I get what they're saying now. Because right now, what's going to come down to is going to be just basic faith we're going to have to hold on to, right? Yeah. Because this is going to be a challenge for a lot of people. It's not going to challenge you. It's not going to challenge myself. because we've already had these challenges. We've already been out there. We know what these communities are like. We know the reality to it, and we can understand. Maybe I don't like seeing this toxic compassion, like I was talking about earlier, because I think it becomes so compassionate, it's toxic. That's why I think Elmo 42 was a whole chapter on that type of compassion, right? Elmo's son, he was that way. And that was a warning for us today. Remember, that book is for us today. And I think we can. So the scriptures actually are full of warnings. We just have to take. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right. You just touched on something there, and I didn't mean to butt in on you, but the Book of Mormon, there is an answer. If you want to learn more about what's going on in your life, and you have questions, well, those questions can be answered by the Book of Mormon. Just because explicitly it's not coming out and denouncing, homosexuality in the Book of Mormon doesn't mean that, that there's a higher standard of the way we need to be taught, and that we can be taught by reading the Book of Mormon and have a testimony of this is the right way. I don't think it's not a matter of going and saying, hey, you're living the wrong way, because that's condemnation. It's more about this is the way to live. If you really want to have exaltation, if you really want to live the happiest that you can possibly live in this life, then you're going to have to read the Book of Mormon and find it delicious. Find it, feast on the words of the Book of Mormon. And then you'll be able to understand the Bible a little bit better. I think the Book of Mormon was written for us during our age, and everything that we are coming across in our life right now, we can really kind of overcome through really understanding the Book of Mormon verse by verse, line upon line.
Well, Jeff, this isn't something, though, that's just not orchestrated. This isn't something that's coming out of the blue. This is something that's been orchestrated in the past. It's orchestrated now. We can go into that. I did an individual video today on the World Economic Forum, United Nations, and their 2050 and 2030 agendas, and et cetera. I talked about that stuff today in an individual video that we'll pump out this week too. But this is an orchestrated effort so that laws can be passed to strip us of our religious freedom. That's what this is about.
And that's what Stalin was all about. That's what communism was all about. Karl Marx, his whole idea was, what was it? Religion was the opioid of, society, it's taking elements that are so important to those that seek to have Jesus Christ in their lives, and other religions, or it's not just isolated to Christian religions, Muslims as well. And you're starting to see Muslims fight back on that, because they don't want their children being indoctrinated in schools either. Come to find out, even though a lot of them voted, more left leaning. But it's nowadays, I think what we're going to start seeing is you're going to see the left and the right, because it's been so divided. They're going to have to kind of come to terms and realize that most of us kind of agree on most things. We've allowed modern day media to indoctrinate us and pull us apart, but Marxism has always wanted to make religion a thing of the past.
And you think you're going to get a blue to sit down with you and have a conversation about that? That's going to be a dialogue that will be beneficial for both parties. You really think that's going to happen at this point right now?
I think right now there's so much division right now. People just don't want to talk about it. If you say, "Hey, I'm going to vote for Trump," you might get clobbered in the head, with a baseball bat. And I'm sure the other day when I had my conversation with my next door neighbor, and she's not a Trump fan, and I just made a comment like, "Well, Biden's not great," And I can see why people don't like Trump. I mean, he's free picking there when it comes to being able to bash on Trump. But and I don't want to get into that too much, but I don't think that we're that far away from being able to have better conversations. I think it's something that it's needed. I think once, I live in a blue state, you live in a blue state. I think that we need to have freedom of speech, and I think at a certain point, we're going to have to start talking about politics.
But Jeff, you're talking about people who want the Constitution we have now that spurned freedom throughout the world. It really did. Okay. Nothing ever did that document ever did that, had that kind of impact ever before. You're talking about those who want the Constitution and those who do not want the Constitution. You're talking about the difference between Marxists.
So we're against the people that don't want the Constitution.
Okay, but most of the blue does not want the Constitution. Now, look, here's an example. Here's a slight example. What's going on right now in Texas, the border issue, right?
Yeah.
26 states now have stood up and said, we're backing you. Okay. To one degree or another, we're going to back you on this, Texas. All Republicans, not one Democrat, not one blue state said, hey, we're going to protect the border for the American people because they don't care about America, Jeff. The border's open to self-destruct America. It's called the Great Replacement. It's to brown out America. And I want to jump onto that today because I know we're trying to keep this at a spiritual points, but there is an agenda behind this. And I hope that you're correct. But unfortunately, I think we're way past it. This had to taken place years ago, this conversation. But they don't want that, Jeff. The Marxists have never wanted that. And the attack on America, you know, if one goes back and looks at the 1990 Sao Paulo Forum that took place to revive communism here the year after the wall was taken down Berlin, right? And this was ordered by Russia through Castro to come over here in Cuba, right? To come to South America to revitalize communism. And basically they took socialism, they call it socialism of the 21st century, right? Siglo XXI. And they basically made it fascism, true fascism, not the type of fascism that you hear people talking about in the news. That's not fascism. Fascism on the left. It's a police state, right?
Yeah.
But it involves your corporations, like today. You know, your social media, your Amazons, your Jeff Bezos, but your Zuckerbergs too, right? Your Instagram, your Facebook, all that's involved, right? Your big corporations, all those are involved in fascism, like you're seeing today. Now,
I thank you for being with us on Courageous Conviction. Remember, there's 5 episodes each week that we put out. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes, so stay with us, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and don't miss tomorrow's episode on Courageous Conviction.